Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight we are on episode 284, and we thought we'd have a little conversation about overcoming adversity. And before we jump down that rabbit hole, I once again like to apologize for last week. I think that's the first time ever we missed a week, and I mean like ever. So after 5 years, hopefully people can bear with us a little bit. Once again, neither of us were feeling that great. It just didn't work out, but we're back this week and we're hitting it hard. So, yeah, overcoming adversity. Adversary.
No. Adversity.
Thank you. Don't give the dyslexic hard words. In any case, this was kind of your topic here tonight, Ben, and I full-heartedly support it. But why don't you lead us into this a little bit and give us what we're going to be talking about, and we'll go down that path.
So, without getting into too much details, because I think we could really go down rabbit holes with this one, we got chatting over the last couple of weeks about people that we've seen out in the woods and things they've done to get out in the woods. And some of it really impressed us. And sometimes it really struck a chord with us that despite having disadvantages that would normally prevent people from being able to do some of the stuff, we still see people out there enjoying the outdoors, doing bushcraft stuff, doing the outdoor stuff that some people might figure they can't, shouldn't, or wouldn't be able to do, but they found a way regardless. And I can think of quite a few people actually in my history that I've met, I've had dealings with to varying degrees of friendship and acquaintanceships, and all of them have impressed me by their tenacity, their ingenuity of how they've gotten out to do stuff that many people who are probably in much better health, much better physical or mental or financial capabilities have not been able to do. And I've heard them, say other people say, I'd love to do that, but I just can't because, and they'll give a reason. And the very first thing I want to say is it's way easier to come up with reasons or things that are preventing you from doing something than it is to come up with ways that you could do them. But there's almost nothing you can't figure out a way to do if you decide to put your mind to it. So I rarely take that at face value when someone says, oh, I can't do that. It's no, you don't want to do that, or you don't really want to do that, or you're so stuck in your ways that you're not willing to do anything but the exact way you want to do it. And so I am going to be a little hard-nosed on this one. I'm going to say that I have seen people do a lot of these things, and if you think you can't, I think that's a limitation you've put on yourself. And if you really want to do it, you will find a way. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that sort of thing. And I think this is a great topic. I hope it really gets some people's creative juices going. I hope that people start thinking in more a positive manner, because it's easy, like I said, to figure out why you can't do something, but it's much better for you to think positively, say, I could do that. I need to do this, or I would need help with this, or I would need, but figure out what are you truly missing that's preventing you from doing this thing that you apparently want to do, but feel you can't.
And I guess for me, starting off, we can kind of break this down into a couple sections, and hopefully we stay within our time constraints, and if we don't, I'm fully cool with going over a little bit tonight because I think it's a good topic. But I mean, this does break down to a couple things. There is the mental and self kind of closing reasons. Basically, your own mind is your worst enemy, much like you said. It's easy to say you can't, and a lot of people just say they can't because, I mean, there's no other way to put it, laziness. They just don't want to. They don't want to expend the effort required to do such a thing. Oh, I would love to. And I've used this. I mean, we've all used this turn of phrases. Oh, I'd die if I did that. You know what I mean? No, you probably won't. You may have to go a little slower. May have to take your time. May have to take more breaks. But there's not a whole lot out there that people just in general can't accomplish if they put their mind to it. Mindset and determination are key factors in doing anything in life. If you really want to do something, much like you said, Ben, you are going to find a way to do it and to enjoy it. Like I said, you may have to make some contingencies. You may have to ask for help, which is another topic I want to talk about further down here. There is that fear of asking others for help. I know a lot of us as bushcrafters, we go out solo. We tend to rely on ourselves, but depending on what your restrictions could be, it may mean you need to ask for a little bit of help or get a helping hand from outside your normal little community, being your friends and family or the people you normally go camping with or whatever the case may be. And that's a whole other limiting factor, but that's still kind of determined by your own mental cognition and there's a word I'm looking for here and I can't remember, but basically you're restricting yourself.
Yeah. It's you build your own roadblocks. And one of the first people I ever met that I seen overcome one of those, he suffered from, I believe it's muscular dystrophy, where his muscles were slowly turning to fat. Like he was losing control of his muscles. And when I knew him, he was unable to walk. He was able to use one hand and move his head for the most part. But one day he was telling me about traveling down a hiking trail that most people would have thought was beyond his capability, but they had given him a wheelchair that had slightly bigger, knobbier tires that allowed him to go down relatively flat and level paths, but it allowed him to go places that before he couldn't do. And so that was very exciting to him. So that was a way that this individual was able to surpass the limitations he had before. So despite the fact that he was physically incapable of doing so much, he was still able to find ways to get out and see places that he didn't think he could have. And that was probably one of the earliest ones I've seen, but by no means the only one.
I mean, for me, one of the big ones that woke my eyes up, and I should mention to everybody out there listening, we're going to refrain from using names and specific instances on this simply as a show of respect and things like that, because we do know some of you folks out there are going to know who we're talking about. And if you know, great, just kind of keep it to yourselves just for respect on this episode. But going back, the very first Nova Scotia Bushcraft gathering that we went to, and you and I had already talked about this, there was a gentleman that had showed up and it was very prominent in the bushcrafting community, but he was wheelchair bound. But it never stopped him, you know what I mean? And I thought that was really neat. And then I got talking to this fella, and yeah, he did have some limitations, you know what I mean? But he always found ways to get over those limitations. There was nowhere he wouldn't go, or at least attempt to go, in a wheelchair. He had, no use of his legs. He was an older gentleman. He had other health issues as well. But the big one was he just couldn't walk down a trail. So he found places that had bigger trails. Or in this instance, he found a place where he could bring a car, take the wheelchair out, and still get into the gathering. It's not that he couldn't do it. He just had to look at it from a different perspective, is one of the things he told me. It's not a matter of, no, I can't, because no is unacceptable. It's a matter of, how do I make it work?
Right. And yeah, there is going to be limitations. There's going to be places that you may not be able to make it 100%, but that doesn't mean that you're limited to no place. Like there's always some leeway, some room for negotiations. So if your thing is, say, visiting waterfalls, there are some waterfalls that are very, very difficult to get to that, you need to, bushwhack for miles, but that doesn't mean you can't see thousands of other ones. There's many that you can drive up to. There's many that you can do short hikes to. There's many that you can do other options. So you can still do that. If you want to carve, you don't need to crawl on your hands and knees into the woods to get there. You can get wood and carve and practice those skills, as long as you have a certain ability to move something. Different carving options do exist, almost regardless of your abilities or inabilities. You just may have to think outside the box a little bit.
And that's the key thing there is don't put yourself in a box. Once you put yourself in a box, you've already accepted your own limitations. Or not even accepted, because you're not accepting your limitations. You're putting limitations on yourself that they're more blurred lines than hard lines. Like the sky's the limit, once again, depending on your tenacity and your mindset and your determination. But if you're putting constraints on the, I can't, you're already defeating yourself before you begin. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And it's interesting because I'm thinking of a conversation me and you had at the very beginning of our relationship talking, where I said something along the lines that you should never let somebody else put a limit on what you or somebody can meet. Everyone has to find their own limits. You can't put that on someone else. So don't look at someone ever and say, "Oh, you can't do that because you're not capable." I mean, to me, that's the most offensive thing you can do to someone. You have to understand that they can do way more than you suspect. Everyone can, um, given time and care. And I've always believed that. And that's why this is such a passionate one for me. Um, and I want to throw a few things that people have said to me over the years of why they cannot go camping. And some of the, like, judge them for yourself. One of them was, I can't go camping because I have long hair and I need to wash it every night.
Okay. Now, my
Right?
automatic kickback to this is going to be they make waterless shampoos.
They do. They also make buckets and water.
I mean,
And
yeah, if you actually want to physically wash your hair, there's nothing stopping you from camping near a river. Get yourself some water, heat it up in a pot, put it in a bucket, go away from the river. We have said this before, don't put your soap products in the river, it kills fish and stuff like that. Come back inland a little bit, use your biodegradable soap, wash your hair. Absolutely.
another one. I have kids. I can't. I couldn't go with my kids.
Ben,
Me and you
how
have both.
old were our kids, our youngest kids at the Nova Scotia Bushcraft Gathering? Because you and I got in a competition to see who had the youngest kid.
And I won.
And you won.
But yeah, I mean that competition. Or she was born in February, and we were doing that in June, if I remember correctly, June or July. So under 6 months, my kids have camped since they were at least 3 months old. I have had all my kids out camping under 3 months old, if it was at all possible. We have never restricted where our kids could go because of their age. Uh, did we have to do things slightly different? I mean, I think this is the whole point of this. Yes, we had to carry more sleeping bags, better clothing. We had to accommodate for that stuff. But we took a newborn baby, that same newborn baby, out on Kedgy Lake and slept on the islands. And it meant that we had to carry we had a little pop-up tent and air mattress, and we'd set that up in the field, and she slept there while the rest of us played and did things, and we fed her, and she was part of that. And she will not remember those trips, but she was there at a very young age. So you're, you know, you can, because we've figured it out. There's many ways you can deal with any of your hygiene issues. There's many ways you can deal with your children. You can take children on backwoods trips. You can take children on multi-day trips. The limitation there is not the kid. The kid isn't limiting you. It's you believing that you can't take care of your kid in the woods.
And that's the thing. You may have to make some accommodations, and you hinted at that a little bit. Maybe you are going to take more breaks. Maybe you need to find places that have a little bit more open area for them to, maybe they don't want to be in deep woods because it's scary to them, depending on their age or something like that. You can make some accommodations and still get out there and have a ton of fun. A big thing is, of course, bugs and stuff like that. They make those little stick-on stickers that you put on your clothes. We use them for a while. Are they great? They're okay. I mean, it's something you can put on if you don't want to spray your kid down. Or you can get netting. You know what I mean? Mosquito netting. You
Yeah.
can set up a nice little area and keep them completely out of the bugs. I mean, at the Nova Scotia Bushcraft Gathering, Melissa over here, she had one of those body slings, and Willie literally just stayed with her or me the entire time we were there. Because your
Yeah.
your little one was 3 months. Lily was about 5 months. Lily's born
Yeah.
December. She's born February. So it was,
Yeah.
you beat me by 2 months.
But but yeah, I mean, that was we. I think we were both excited to see other young parents with young kids at the event because we thought we might have been the only one, and it turned out we weren't. But I have talked to hundreds of people, if not more, who've indicated they want to get into camping, but they're going to wait till the kids are old enough. And I'm like, what is
Start
old
young.
enough?
Start young.
Yeah. What I will tell you is it's easier to start them young than it is older because as they get older, they're already more into their ways. And at 5 and 6, they're going to push back because they're used to not having to sleep on the floor or on the ground. They're used to having, a shower available whenever they want it. They're used to the amenities, and teaching them that these amenities are not something they'll always have actually gets harder. Um, So I would say there's no age that's too young. But as they get older, the likelihood they'll be into it and enjoy it, I think, goes down.
Hmm.
And it's a harder battle at that point. So if I had to choose, I would always take a younger kid early than an older kid, um, than waiting. That's my personal choice. I'm sure that maybe our audience will agree with me, but there's many who won't.
And
That's
don't
okay.
and don't get us wrong, folks. The flip side of that is your kids are never too old to start either. Just don't let it be the deciding factor on you not going out. Oh, my children are too young. Take it from Ben and I. They've been under 6 months and we've been out on multi days because we stayed at the Nova Scotia Bushcraft Gathering. She's got her headphones in. We were there for a couple days. We were there for 2, 3 days.
Yeah,
And I
it was
mean,
3 nights.
2 nights, 3 days. She did hear me. Okay. But anyway, yeah, it's very doable. And I mean, it was a little closer. It was a park area and stuff like that, but it was a good way of getting them out. It was into the woods. We were around other people. It was fine. As you said, you've taken them out on the lake and stuff like that. We've had Willie in the woods as far back as we can remember. We still go out to the cabin and stuff like that. She's been itching to get out in a tent again. Yeah, there's ways you can do it. There, like, once again, the only limiting factor is your own limitations that you're putting on yourself.
Yeah.
And kids are tough. This is what people don't understand is kids are tough. Oh, my kid's a baby. And I say that, loosely meaning that they whine and stuff like that, which, you know what, all kids do to a little bit. But you'd be surprised what kids will enjoy and what they will go through. And you'll be like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine doing that one as a kid. And they'll love it. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're going to be a little against it from the get go because, as Ben said, they're used to sleeping in beds. They're used to having their tablet or their phones or their computers or their TV shows or their Chromebooks or their video games or whatever. But once they get over the initial shock of not having that stuff and they start finding stuff they enjoy, they really do enjoy it. It's a whole other world to experience. And kids love to soak up information regardless of what you think about it.
What
Kids, they're built for learning.
what I have realized with kids work very much on the inertia rule, and if you take them camping, it may be a bit of a bug, resistance to get them going. But once you get there, it's going to be resistance to get them to leave. Right? They're more often they want to be where they're to. They're already there. They're comfortable. Don't make me move and go somewhere else. So if you've had them camping, they're going to want to continue camping until it's generally, unless there's something they absolutely miss. And there's usually ways around it. The other one that's very common now, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of our viewers, is the CPAP machine.
Yep.
A lot of people now, more people than I think I'd ever heard of in the first half of my life, there's more people now than I know with CPAP machines than there was ever in my first half of my life.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's
I
a,
didn't even know CPAP machine existed until I
yeah,
seen one. Like I had heard of them, but didn't really know what they did until some of Melissa's family there. They used one, and then I seen it, and I'm like, oh, that's what that does. And then, like you said, almost like every second or third person has a CPAP machine now.
yeah. So there are, just so you know, I don't use one. I'm not knocking it or not pushing for it. But if you're having trouble sleeping, it's possible that you have, is it sleep apnea, that you're not breathing in the middle of the night, and this machine helps you maintain your breathing, keeps your oxygen levels good. It does all this stuff, and it means you generally get a better night's sleep if this is your problem. And so the solution, of course, is to use this machine, but it requires to be plugged into a wall, and you're wearing a mask for the most part. Um, there are CPAP machines that have built-in batteries that can go 1 to 2 days without recharging. There's also power stations you can get, basically battery-powered systems you can get. Generators, a little less so. You could carry a full generator out, but a lot of places won't let you run them all night. And honestly, that might be annoying to everyone around you. So there are methods to get away from that. And it's worth looking into it. I have been in the woods with people who have had a CPAP machine, and it has helped them. They tell me they wake up more refreshed. They're less likely to have headaches. The people that I know who really are somewhat dependent on it but haven't taken it tell me that it is harder, but they are able to do it. So they may have to put up with being more tired or having a headache. or various other side effects, but they are managing to do it. And that's what I would consider, although, a real medical concern, sort of an example of a lot of other medical things that do sometimes require outside support. But what it turns out is a lot of them do have a more mobile option. This might mean that you're probably not doing the ATC, uh, you know, uh, because you're not carrying a box that can do that. Say a power station that can do that maybe weighs 5-10 pounds at minimum, and then the CPAP machine itself takes up room. It might not be feasible, but that doesn't mean you can't do a 2 or 3 day hike, or you can't have one dropped off at a location. There are ways around it. So if there's a trip you really want to do, something like that, I think the options exist. You could find a way if that's your one roadblock.
No, and I completely agree. And I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit I use a CPAP machine. I just got one a few years ago. I still hate the thing. I'm not going to lie. I hate having something touch my head when I'm sleeping. And everybody told me, oh, you'll get used to it. That's a lie, folks. Sometimes you never get used to it. You just accept it for what it is. And I do have a better night's sleep. I snore. And if I don't have one, I snore, and that's generally the pullback for me. I don't really notice a major difference between using it and not using it when I wake up, but the girls notice it. You know what I mean? Especially Lily. Lily will tell me not to snort at her. Um, Stop snorting at me, yes. But it does. It does help a lot of things. Like Ben said, it gets your oxygen levels and stuff up. But there is other options. I mean, there is some devices out there that people have had luck with, depending on your severity of sleep apnea. It's just a mouthpiece that holds your jaw forward a little bit. I've heard other people say they use these like portable CPAP machines that kind of attach to your nose. I don't know how I feel about those, but the idea is all it does is provide a little positive pressure so that the soft palate of your throat doesn't kind of reverberate back, and either it vibrates and you snore, or it walks up and you stop breathing for a second, then all of a sudden you take this massive gasp in. And I imagine I do both, though I've never heard myself sleep. Um,
I've sent you recordings.
I don't listen to them, you know that. But anyway, yeah, it can be done. Like, we still go out camping. I'm on the group where I just don't take it. People got to put up with me snoring, which is terrible because I'm usually the first one to sleep. But it is bad for your health. And I mean, there is ways that you can still incorporate some of that out there. Like I said, try a few of these other things. They may work for you. They don't work for everybody, but it's worth a try if you are passionate about getting out there and trying it. I'm going to try the jaw thing. I have decided I am going to try and buy one of these things. I've heard that they can be somewhat uncomfortable, but the benefits of being able to breathe good while you're sleeping far outweigh a tiny bit of discomfort, I think, at least. Stay tuned. I'll tell you more when I find out more.
Yeah. So what I think we're getting at, and I mean, we are approaching the 30 minutes, and we said we would be willing to go over, but you have to look at your own individual situation and determine what you absolutely need. And it might be that sleep apnea machine. It could be some other medical device. It might be some comfort item that you need to be able to make it through the day. And I'm not here to judge you for your need, because I think that need is real. And whether it is some hygiene issue, or it is a sleeping issue, or it's a more severe medical issue where, it could have much greater effects. We could use diabetes as an example. Just because you're diabetic doesn't mean you can't go in. Maybe you need to monitor. Maybe you need to take that equipment. Just know that it is possible. You may have to deal with, trying to keep your medicine at the right temperature, in the right conditions, all these things. But once you sit down and look at what you absolutely need and how you can deal with it and what solutions are possibly available, things do tend to become more easier.
Yeah, and that's it. Break it down into steps is what I always do with anything that I need to figure out. The old STAR analysis, what's the situation, what's the task, the action, all that good stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't know what I mean, folks, just go look up STAR methodology. It's kind of interesting. It just breaks down any major problem into individual parts to try and give you something that you can manage. So anything that's, maybe looks massive and oh my goodness, I cannot do this, It gives you a way to try and tackle it. But anyway, yeah, and that's the thing. Once you figure out what you need to do, what your ultimate goal is, just look at how you can make it happen. Originally starting, and I mean, some people are going to not like this, but honestly, just don't accept no as an answer in your own mindset. You know what I mean? At least starting off, no is not an answer. How can I do this? What? And it may be outlandish. Oh, if I had $1,000,000, well, that's not realistic either. How else could you do it? You know what I mean? And just break it down. What starts becoming realistic? What is in the realm of what you can handle? And this isn't just for things like sleep apnea. I'm going to jump off the deep end here. We both know individuals that have had major medical issues going on with them. And they found ways to overcome it. And we're talking people that were in cancer treatments, people that had dialysis daily, people that are in heart failure and things like that. Like, they find a way to make it work. Now, once again, we're talking about they had to make major changes. They had to accommodate for these things, but their mindset was no is not an answer. And once you start realizing that there's people out there that, like Ben said at the start of this, are in far worse situation than you are, either medically or financially or physically or whatever, and they're still going, you know what? Nah, screw it. I'm still, like, life gives me lemons. Screw that. I'm freezing the suckers and throwing them back kind of deal. Not just making lemonade. Then things start getting a little bit more in perspective for you. And honestly, once again, we keep saying this, but it's true. You set your own limitations.
Yeah. My father had cancer. Yeah, that's not a big secret, I don't think, from anyone. And I know he was still able to work as a hunting guide while getting chemo. It meant he did have to leave one day in the middle of the week to get his treatments, but he was still able to work the rest of the week. Like, he was able to find a way to still bring people in hunting, still be a guide, still be an active and productive guide. Was it easy? Probably not. Was he able to do it? Yes. He did not accept the limitation that he had to stay home and do absolutely nothing.
And there's something, you said a key word there. Was it easy? Folks, nothing's easy in life, and the things that you really want are definitely worth putting the work in for. In my mind, anyway.
Yeah. So we've always said, for us, our bushcrafting, our time out in the woods, that is a huge part of our mental health. And so if somebody told us we had to do it in a more difficult manner, but we could still do it, we would probably do it. If I was told that I can't carry a backpack anymore, but I'm able to drag a wagon, I will put my gear in a wagon, I will drag that wagon through the woods. If I'm told that I can no longer drag the wagon, I'm going to get the canoe and I'm going to paddle, and I'll camp where I can paddle, right? And if I'm told I can't paddle anymore, then I'll probably put a battery in the boat and I'll get a little trolley motor and I'll trolley on something.
Off we go. We're still going to make it happen. And that's the thing. What is the realm of realism? Like, oh, I'll get a helicopter and fly me in. Everybody has pipe dreams. Don't get me wrong. If I had a helicopter, first, I'd be visiting Ben way more often. 2, we'd be going way more interesting places to go camping. But, I mean, that's realistically probably not going to happen. Our drones are about... Sorry?
Believe it or not, hiring a helicopter, hiring a float plane to get into some places isn't impossible. It's not more expensive than is feasible. Could I do it every weekend? Absolutely not. Could I potentially do it once a year or once every other year? Definitely. Is there places that I probably would never get any other way? Yes.
And I think about it this way. How many people go away for a vacation every year? How many people spend $3,000 to $4,000 every year on said vacation? Maybe your vacation is going camping.
Some people spend 10 grand a year on cruises.
Yeah, absolutely. A buddy of mine that I used to work with back in Justice, him and his wife, every year they went on a cruise. Every year it was about $4,500 a piece. I mean, it's one of those big fancy all-inclusive cruises, don't get me wrong. And I imagine it's amazing. Probably worth every cent. But that's a lot of money at the flip side. You know what I mean? Like you said, $9,000, $10,000 a year go on this cruise. They made it work because they wanted to do it. No was not an answer. It was, how do we make it happen? Not, that's never going to happen. It's, no, we want it to happen. How do we make it happen?
And the reality is, if that's what you absolutely want to do, you take $100 a week or $200 a check if you're paid bi-weekly, And there's your $5,000 right there.
Yep. And
Right?
that's it. Once again, get into the mindset of not. Can't is a nice way of saying shouldn't. That's what I always tell people. There is no such thing as can't. There is no such thing as no. No is not allowed to exist. And once you get into that mindset, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish. I think we've had this conversation before when you were talking about being in the militia. When you think you are absolutely at your end, you're basically only halfway there.
You sit down and you look at whatever you want, whatever you expect to do. And somebody said this, and I want to throw this out there. You can't tell a drug addict that he can't have drugs. He will find a way to get drugs. He will be out there finding a way to get the money to get his drugs. Somebody who smokes will always have enough money for cigarettes. He might not have much money for food or rent or his car payments, but if that's the thing that you put as the biggest priority in your life, you're going to find a way to do it. If you're into collecting classic cars, then you're going to find the money to buy the classic car. You'll always be working on your next classic car. Do you get one a year? Probably not. But you're saving constantly. You're probably buying things here, knowing that you can sell them there to make a bit of extra money towards the one you want. But once you're in that world, you can find a way. Theoretically, I could resell some of my gear and probably camp more. Reality is, I don't need to. And I like my gear. I don't sell my gear. I don't trade my gear very often. I am stuck with way more gear than I need. But it's my thing. It's my hobby. I find the money for my hobby. I don't find money for other things that I deem less important.
Yeah. And I think we all have things like that, and it just becomes what is your priority. So the I can't, it's not that you can't, it's you don't want to put the effort in. So if you really want to find a way and put the effort in, there's generally a way that's going to make it happen for you. And that's the thing. Don't be scared. And kind of jump into the next topic I want to talk about a little bit on this is don't be scared to ask for help. A lot of people are scared to ask for help, and I understand, some people think it's a little embarrassing or it's off-putting or whatever the case may be, but if you have real friends and you have, good buddies, don't be scared to ask for help. Your life will change a lot when you realize that asking for help is kind of within human nature. We are a social species for the most part, and we expect to rely on each other to some degree. Most people, they're probably not going to give you a hard time about it either, especially if they're into something that you enjoy. So in the instance that you said there, Ben, you can't carry your backpack anymore. Well, maybe you get a couple of your buddies and you go group camping now and they all agree to carry a tiny bit of your gear. You know what I mean? Or maybe you
Yeah.
can't carry as much for whatever reason. And I can tell you right now, if I was able to and you were like, hey, Rob, you know what? I'm not allowed to do this anymore, doctor's orders, but I still really want to go camping. I'm going to be like, holy crap, Ben, okay, throw, a couple of extra pounds on me. We'll grab Chris. He can grab a couple extra pounds. We'll grab a half a dozen other people. We're going to make this work. We're going to get you into the woods, and we get a camping trip out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One thing that came to mind immediately is a pack animal,
Yeah. Where's my dog?
right?
Maybe not the best pack animal.
Maybe not your dog. But I have had dogs that carried their own gear.
Yep.
Donkeys. If you can get yourself like your hands on a donkey, you put a lot of gear on a donkey and it'll follow you.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, okay, some people are going to say, well, Ben, I can't house a donkey. Can't you? But okay, realistically, get yourself an ATV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does it have to be the top of the line, fanciest thing out there? No. Does it have to be a massive 1000cc bike that you can hear from 7 blocks away? No. You'd be surprised
Absolutely.
what you can get with a 250. Like one of those 84
250.
Honda 250s that you pick up for like $1,200. A buddy of mine has one now, and it puts me to shame where my 500 won't go.
I will tell you, I spent a lot of my years on a Honda 200M big, or not big, it's a Honda 200 big M 3-wheeler. That little 200 could tow about a quarter of a cord of wood on a trailer through anything. Like it was going. If you hooked that trailer to it, it was moving. That's 200 cc's. 200 cc's would drag 2 full-grown men through the backwoods of Newfoundland like it was nothing.
Yep. And that's the thing. You'd be surprised where you can get with a bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and this is the thing. On those bigger bikes, you're going to get less places. They get hung up more. The in-laws, they picked up a side-by-side, though it is 100% more comfortable to sit in. Its its breakover point is significantly less than my ATV. My ATV, I'll be bopping along stuff, they'll get hung up. So don't always go for the biggest and baddest and flashiest. Go for what works. If you're going to be banging through the woods, a shorter wheelbase is going to give you more options. Keep in mind, this means you're going to have more hazards rolling forward and backwards. Once again, know your limitations and make compromises for them or allowances. But you can get a lot of places. Like I said, my buddy Mark, he's got a little 250, just picked it up, and he would literally stagger you where he puts that thing. But it's just perfect. It's tiny. It's light. If it gets stuck, he just picks it up, moves it over, and gets going.
And that's exactly it. The smaller CC, smaller bikes, you can generally, if you do get them stuck, it doesn't take much. You can usually manhandle them over the obstacle or under the obstacle, depending on the obstacle, and keep going. With these big car-sized vehicles, and I say car-size, and I mean quads and side-by-sides, if they get stuck, you need the winch. You need the other ATV. You need 2 or 3 guys to help you. But on my little 200, I tell you, I've rarely ever seen one of those things actually stuck. I thought they were stuck, but it turned out they weren't. You just needed to know how to drive them.
Inconvenienced.
I got one stuck one time. I told my father, I can't get it. It's stuck. Dad went down. He stood on it. He rocked 2 or 3 times, and he drove the thing friggin' out of the mud like it was nutty. And I was like, oh, I just didn't know how to drive it. Because honestly, those things, if you get one of those things stuck, you did something really bad. You did something very, very, very bad. Because those things don't really get stuck.
No, and they were great too. They had those massive flotation tires on, and we're diving down a rabbit hole here. But anyway, they would go through anything. A buddy of mine, just to dive down this rabbit hole a little bit more, he used to drive through swamps. Put a big snorkel on it, used to come up over his head, and all you would see is like the handlebars and him kind of going through the water. And he'd just keep on mowing through like it was nothing. He treated it like garbage, and it never stopped working.
They were by far my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, you don't need the biggest, most powerful machine. There was a thing that was really popular a little while ago. It was a little tracked vehicle. I think it was only 100 or 150 cc's. You couldn't even ride on it. You had to tow yourself, and it had like a remote.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen the commercials for them.
Yeah, but their original thing was you could hook a little trailer to them, put all your gear in, and it would more or less you remotely controlled it. But the guy who was using it, I remember seeing he had I think it was the crazy Russian guy or something, but
it was a dogless sled or something. It was something.
But he was sitting on this thing, on the sled behind it, controlling it remotely, and he went way in the woods. So there are options out there. There are solutions for sure.
And just want to shout out to Danny and Steve. They're both joining us in the comments here. I was talking to them earlier, so they know what we're talking about. And welcome to the show, folks. Thanks for joining us in here. Once again, I can't say it enough for this episode. Your own limitations are the ones you put on yourselves. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is hard limitations. Sometimes there is just, physically, you cannot make this happen. But, can you? Once again, go outlandish and then start deconstructing it from there. That's what I always do. I always, either out of frustration or, joking, say, oh, if I had $1 million, I could make it work. Well, that's not going to work. What's going to really work here? Well, if I had a helicopter, well, that's probably up past the $1 million, so let's break it back down again. Well, realistically, I'd need like 6 days to make that hike. Okay, now we're talking about something we can actually handle. You know what I mean? So do you need the 6 days? And during that 6 days, is it plausible to stop? If you were to take that trek and look through it and go, okay, it's going to take me 6 days. For whatever reason, health concerns, you can only walk 5 kilometers a day. 5 kilometers a day sounds like a lot. It's not really a lot, folks. Ben, what can you walk in the run of a day? If you were just to start going through the woods? 14, 20 kilometers fairly easily?
20 kilometers is my general number I write down. If through rougher terrain, not the roughest, but rougher terrain, if I have to trail braze a little bit, I have to look for markers, or I can do about 20 kilometers. And a brisk walk with a light pack, 5 to 6 kilometers an hour is not impossible. And I can walk for probably about 8 hours a day. So I would say easily 30 to 40 is a possibility. That's a hard day for me. And I don't know how many days I could do that for.
But okay, let's
20
say
is
that
my,
your normal day is 30 kilometers. That's a hard day. You could do this. Now, health conditions say, well, no, you can only do 5 kilometers a day now. So that just means you now took that 6 day tour. So during that same spout, let's just find 5 places to sleep. You know what I mean? Make it a longer trip. Make it about the destination and the journey, not just hammer through and get to the destination.
one of the things, if you're physically restricted in what you can do, is it possible that each of your stops could be somebody could drop a cache off for you? Because cache camping is a real thing. And I may have used the wrong term here, but if you can have your gear dropped off, and maybe it means you need to have 5 sets of gear beforehand at a location close to where you're hoping to camp, it means you can go without gear. Uh, some places you go in Europe, and that I've heard, we were talking about this today. Um, there are hostels and stuff at every stop. So a lot of people that are doing these hikes don't go with heavy bags. They go with very minimal bags because there's a place to stay. You can do something similar here in North America. You may have to plan it out a bit, but maybe you can have someone drop your gear off, or maybe you have someone even pick your gear off and bring it to the next stop. So that means you can hike at the minimums. Maybe you're into cycling. Maybe you can get these e-bikes. I think these e-bikes are awesome, by the way. You can get an e-bike and a little trailer,
Oh, yeah.
and you could easily do a day with the bike without recharging it. Now, multi-day trips with these, I think would be tricky because at some point you are going to need to recharge this thing. But options are there.
What I'm thinking is those little pedal bikes with the engines on them. You may be able to
Gas ones,
strap
yeah.
an extra gas can to the bike itself. You know what I mean? Can you go
100%.
indefinitely? No, but I mean, once again, same buddy that had the four wheeler, he had one of those and he burnt all around town. I know they can get a couple kilometers pretty easy on a tank of.
Oh man, I think it's something like, oh, I did see the number for that. It's like 100 kilometers to a gallon of fuel or something.
Oh, it's crazy what they get fuel mileage wise. I mean, depending on how much you weigh and the terrain you're on and stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, but
But a fuel, you can buy a fuel bag, not a fuel tank, but a fuel bag. So it's a soft bladder that holds about a gallon or two of fuel, plus what's already in the original tank. You can buy oversized tanks for these things. And you can probably go for 2 to 5 days on a tank of fuel. And if you're willing to paddle a little bit of that and not use the engine as much, that gets even longer.
exactly.
And then, chances are on a trip that long, you're going to come across a place you can refill.
Or you're
make
going
the
to get
arrangement.
to a place where somebody can bring you gas. You know what I mean? Once again,
Yeah.
we get to these cash drops. Maybe somebody can drop you another can of gas and you can refuel yourself up and just get back to it.
Yeah. So definitely options. I mean, think about it. A thru hiker does not carry 6 months of food on the day he leaves. They carry a week to 2 weeks of food at the absolute most because they plan on stopping for refills every week or every week and a bit.
Yep.
You don't carry that much. Everyone expects at some point to come out and refresh their gear, their data, their stuff, right? All these trips, people nowadays, more though in the past, do need to top up their electronics. They need to top up their food. They need to replace things that wore out. I love these big through hikes because most of the ones I've watched end up replacing their shoes somewhere in the middle.
Makes sense, I suppose, because, I mean, it's hard going. Or it
Yeah.
can be hard going. It's hard on shoes.
A buddy of mine, he did the Alaskan. Here's a good example of the same thing. Man in his 70s managed to do a trip way up to Alaska and back on his own motorcycle by himself with some health issues. I really look up to this guy. By the time he got back, his rear tire needed to be replaced. He had completely cooked the tire. He had done some amount of damage to his bike, wear more than damage that needed to be replaced and repaired. But, you know, it tells me that if he can do it, a lot of the people I meet, they say, "Oh, I could never do that. It'd be too hard." It's like, no, you can. You 100% can. But to do it, you are going to have to think ahead. You are going to have to plan. You are going to have to probably give up something somewhere. You can't have everything, but you can usually get the things you need, and you need to understand those. So I think we've covered this. I don't know if we
We
should.
covered a lot. We jumped down some rabbit holes, and we're 15 minutes over time. So
Yeah,
I think we can kind of wrap it up here.
but I think the point stands, and this is where we started, and this is where I want to end. If there's something you really want to do, and we're talking bushcraft, but honestly, it could be anything in life. If there's something you truly want to do, and it's important to you, you can find a way to do it. If you're looking for ideas or thoughts, we are willing to brainstorm with you. But for the most part, take some time, brainstorm the ideas. You would be surprised how many options are potentially out there. And the number of things that are running through my head at this moment is almost infinite. And it's not that I don't do it because I can't. It's that those aren't my priorities. But there are things that I have thought I'd love to do. It's just right now not a priority. Could I do them? I know I can do them. Why am I not doing them? It's not my priority right now. Other ones are higher. But yeah, get out there, have fun, enjoy yourself. We only have one life to live. Live it. Don't live it regretting not having done the 1,000 things you could have done.
There's so many people at the end of their lives that go, I regret. The only thing I want at the end of my life is to go, I wish I could have done more. I don't want to regret anything that I didn't do or that I did. I just want to be, I wish I could have done more.
Yes.
And not in the, oh man, I could have done more in my life. No, I wish I could have had even more fun.
Yeah. I could have got another camping trip in. I could have done this. I could have
had one more boat.
One more boat, one more motorcycle trip, one more.
One more time.
Get out there. Do the things you want to do. Figure out what your priorities are. Think about it and what brings you the most fun, most happiness per unit of energy, whatever you want to put that in. If you spend your whole life trying to do one trip on a Alaskan cruise, maybe that's worth it. But maybe 1,000 camping trips, that you walked from your house would have been a better all-around thing. So figure it out, what works for you, and do that thing.
And as always, at the end of the video, I like to throw something out to you folks. If you are in the position where you have overcome adversity, by all means, reach out to us and let us hear your stories. If you are willing, we'll even bring you on the show and you can share your story. If you don't like being on the show, that's perfectly fine too. You can do up a write-up and I'll read it. Whatever the case may be, we love hearing about your your folks' adventures. And overcoming adversity is one of those things that I think it really takes somebody kind of opening your eyes a little bit to realize how much you are actually capable of. And if nothing else, maybe some of your folks' stories will inspire others to do more than they think they're capable of. Anyway, folks, as Ben said, get out there, have fun, get dirty, let us know about it, and we'll talk to you next week.